Hi, I'm Jack Breeding, Solution Architect here at Ribbon Communications. I'd like to spend a few minutes today talking to you about broadband network aggregation and what we call the intelligent middle mile. So when we use the term middle mile, what are we referring to? In a broadband network, it's generally broken down into three major architectural categories. There's the last mile, which of course attaches to the end customer, be they a residence, a business, a municipal facility, healthcare, a wireless a cellular tower, what have you. These devices that are designed for the last mile are essentially designed to be low cost and ubiquitous. So, in other words, you're going to be buying a lot of these. This is where the bulk of the CapEx investment goes, is to putting those into the network. You need one basically for every customer, and so you're going to be buying a lot of them. Uh, because they have to go everywhere, um, they perform tasks, basically the on-ramp tasks of one to many, bringing multiple customers into a single pipeline that then can be aggregated. Because you buy a lot of them, because their job is to be distributed across your access regions, they necessarily have to be very, very cost effective. Because they have to be cost effective, this is not the appropriate place to put higher level service awareness and what we might call white glove treatment for individual services, making the network work for that customer in a very customized manner. These devices do a great job for what they do, which is that basic on ramp with some really sort of low level services um, and service awareness. The other side of the network is the core or the first mile. This is where the content is that your customers are looking for. This is the streaming services, data center access, and a variety of other facilities and applications that customers are looking for. So, as you might guess, between the last mile and the first mile is the middle mile. The middle mile is also referred to as the backbone or the transport network, but it's so much more than simple transport. And what I hope to show you over the next few slides is the unique characteristics of a middle mile and why it's so important to make sure that this part of your network scales just as well as the investment in your access. And in fact, a proper investment in the middle mile enhances the investment that you've made, perhaps in upgrading from a GPON to an XGS-PON solution. So briefly, the middle mile provides a number of unique characteristics, a number of features to your overall broadband network. It provides geographic reach. Um, Middle mile networks can be as small as a college campus and as large as the continent. So they have to be necessarily very flexible and very scalable in terms of our offerings. We're going to be talking about Ribbon's offerings here with regard to the middle mile in a slide or two. But these are the basic characteristics: geographic reach, uh, flexible capacity, meaning that you can't be you can't build a fixed capacity backbone, right? Generally, with last mile type devices, they are fixed capacity. You will buy them at, well, used to be 10 gig, now 100 gig, and then 400 gig. However, there's always the plus one problem there, right? With access devices. When you get to 11 gig in a 10 gig network, you've got to go all the way around the ring and replace the hardware. Same with getting to 101 gig on a 100 gig network and eventually 401 gig on a 400 gig network. Going through and replacing all of those regularly can get very, very expensive. Uh, so in the backbone, the way that the middle mile is designed, the way that Ribbon solutions are designed, is to make sure that you've got the capacity that you need today, but then very easily and cost effectively add to that capacity in the transport network to bring those customers out to the content they need, and then, of course, back again. So that flexible capacity, what that means is twofold. One is it needs to be easy to do, very straightforward to add that capacity. And two, it needs to be cost effective. And that certainly is what we're going to be covering today. Third, and really most importantly, what we're seeing today is a bit of a sea change in how networks are being designed, the protocols that are being used, and all of this, of course, is being driven by the dramatic and ongoing increase in traffic, but also the sophistication of the applications that customers are looking for. So service awareness represents the ability of that middle mile network to recognize a customer coming from the access, recognizing the level of service that they've paid for, making sure that their quality of that service, their quality of their experience is exactly what you want them to have and what they're paying for, which of course is reflected in the bottom line with happier and stickier customers staying with you over time. So we're going to be covering these topics here in the next few slides. And let's roll on. So service awareness and service handling is, as I mentioned, one of the most important characteristics of the modern intelligent middle mile network. We've, of course, had the term quality of service for a long time, representing the ability to prioritize one piece of traffic over another. It was great at the time, very, I will say, somewhat primitive at this point with regard to actual traffic engineering. What is available today is what we might term quality of experience. So with the variety of services that are out there on the network today, and certainly more to come in the next several years, you've got gaming and what you might term interactive experiences with virtual reality, augmented reality, high resolution streaming, mission critical traffic. This might be for a utility, for a healthcare facility, et cetera. There's always going to be basic broadband. You're always going to have a layer or a tier of customers that simply want basic internet browsing and email and so forth. Folks that are working at home, the gig economy, gig workers, the transition from officing in a brick and mortar facility to working at home is well underway over the last few years. And then, of course, your typical business customers. If you look at this diagram here in the middle, you see with the legend down below, you've got a mix of low latency services, high availability services, high speed services. This is a very basic diagram, but it's meant to give you a flavor for the different types of traffic handling that you need as the traffic comes into your network. So the network at some point between last mile and first mile and middle mile, at some point that network has to recognize this particular customer, what they're paying, what their level of service is, and then it needs to be able to either statically or dynamically provide those services for that customer on a regular and reliable basis. As I mentioned, with access devices, they're simply not designed to do that. The core devices are also not designed to do that. They have other tasks that they need to perform. So the most important part of the network with regard to service awareness and traffic engineering is going to be your middle mile, right? Keep in mind as well that the middle mile, its job is to aggregate all of your customers. On my diagram with a simple access network on one end and the core on the other, the access part of that network really represents multiple rings. It may be, as some of our customers experience, backhaul of hundreds or even thousands of cell towers. So the aggregation is not only a large, it can also be a very large geographic deployment, but it also has a wide variety of customers and services that it has to backhaul and provide that flexible capacity for. So let's move to uh, what I call scaling in 3 dimensions. So on the left-hand side, of course, this is a representation of the access part of your network, which is typically going to be multiple rings. Again, could also be cell towers. The middle mile in the center of the diagram and the IP core. On the right-hand side is basically a representation of that 3 dimensional scaling. So when we talk about scalability and capacity, what we typically mean when someone says that word is, I need more bandwidth. And that's, of course, ongoing and ever present as internet usage continues to climb. So I don't want to brush over that. It's certainly important. But along with increased bandwidth is that service awareness and that intelligent middle mile traffic engineering. Um, so if you throw bandwidth at it, which is something we've kind of done in the past, where everyone was just looking for dedicated internet access, then for a while that solved the problem, right? Uh, but we have moved beyond that situation where more bandwidth at the network does not necessarily improve the quality of experience. What is necessary is that the network be intelligent and recognize the service demands, service needs, and then build appropriately, whether it's routing protocol, whether it's flexible Ethernet and hard slicing or typical soft slicing. All of these protocols have come about in the past few years and capabilities in order to support this higher level of service awareness and service handling. So really, in order for your network to truly meet the needs of your customers, not just today, but going forward into the future, you need to scale in 3 dimensions, right? So the depth and breadth of bandwidth, but then also the third dimension of service awareness. So Ribbon's Intelligent Middle Mile has a number of tools in the toolbox to provide this support. Again, on the diagram, you've got last mile access network, your customers on the left-hand side, the resources that they're looking for on the right-hand side, be it simple internet access, streaming content services, access to data centers, and so forth. With an intelligent middle mile, these services can be distributed along the middle mile, as well as being isolated in a more traditional sense on the other side of border routers. Okay, so these services, you now have the flexibility to provide access at different parts along the way, as opposed to simply having what we used to term dumb pipes, right? Simple long haul transport that's just moving packets from one side to the other. We have moved beyond that, and with the intelligent middle mile, you've got the capability and the flexibility to build a network that suits you instead of operating from sort of a basic manual of construction. As I mentioned in the early part of the conversation, service awareness in the middle mile will optimize your CapEx investment when going from, for instance, GPON to XGS-PON. So the investment that you're making in the last mile is enhanced by the proper investment in the middle mile as well. And then finally, with the ability to customize the network, be it a DWDM solution, OTN switching, putting IP switching, IP routing, packet transport in a package together, you're going to end up with a managed solution through a single pane of glass that's going to deliver overall the lowest total cost of ownership for that middle mile. When calculating the realized improvements in revenue from additional service offerings, the maximization of your last mile and access investments, you can really start thinking about the revenue side of the balance sheet with regard to middle mile, as opposed to simply just the cost of moving packets as it was in the old days. So Ribbon's platform that we provide the The intelligent middle mile is largely based on our Neptune MPT for short platforms. There are two complete families, the AR or 1000 series and the XDR or 2000 series. These are automated IP routing and switching engines that are first all run on the same operating system. They all support coherent routing, meaning your DWDM optics, your coherent optics plug directly into the routing platform itself. They are specifically designed for middle mile transport in terms of their interface mix, their ability to support complete fan redundancy, A and B side power redundancy, and swappable cards, as well as a variety of dual switch fabrics and then other smaller form factor single switch fabric boxes. So it's safe to say that there is an NPT or Neptune device out there for every part of the middle mile network, from the access aggregation, where we're aggregating the access networks and the access rings, all the way up to a metro or a much larger scale aggregation solution. So finally, the intelligent middle mile really comes down to these four pillars of capabilities. The flexible capacity, as I mentioned in one of my first slides, represents not just the depth and breadth of increased bandwidth, but also the third dimension of advanced traffic handling for advanced applications. I'll also say that there are going to be applications in the future that we certainly have no knowledge of today, but we can make fairly educated guesses about them. They're going to require lower latency. They're going to have video and audio components. They're probably going to have an increased bandwidth component, and they're also going to be very popular, right? We're in an era today, as of the date of this recording, where we are moving from a Facebook type access to regular streaming services, TikTok, Instagram, and so forth. So you can see that we're moving from more of a fixed website-based type social media to much more of a live feed audio and visual environment. And that's certainly going to increase into the future. Investing wisely. So at the time of this recording, we are in the middle of a really historic and unprecedented amount of public investment from the US government, particularly investing in rural broadband, as well as tribal broadband, but there are applications really across the board underneath those funding programs. But just because that money is available today doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be there 10 years from now if you feel like you have to refresh your network. So I say invest wisely, meaning that when you build that intelligent middle mile network, right, make sure that it's going to serve you for now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and beyond. When I talk about ROI, what I'm talking about is if I can push your refresh date because of the quality of the solution we're providing out another 3 or 4 years, then I've bought you that much more revenue on that initial investment, right? The term regarding future proofing of a network is really a bit of a misnomer. There's no such thing as future proof. Every single device from every vendor you will ever buy is going to go obsolete at some point. When we talk about ROI, we are talking about, again, pushing that refresh date further into the future and maximizing the dollars that you are investing today. You also want to consider that you're going to need to sustainably reduce your operational expenses. Ribbon solutions are specifically designed with automation and the intelligent middle mile to provide that capability to you to keep your OpEx costs low. There's almost no OpEx dollars in the money that is currently being provided through public investment. So all the more important to keep that in mind. Service awareness, I've hit several times during this little talk, and I can't stress it enough. The kinds of applications that we are seeing today on the internet are just the foreshadowing of what we're going to see over the life of a network. If you bought a network today, that network from Ribbon, we're fully confident that it'll still be in place 10 years from now and probably beyond. Um, the service awareness is going to be critical to support those applications that we're not even aware of yet, that are going to be written years from now. So consider that when you are making an investment in a new network, when you look at the middle mile, and you want to make sure that you're going to maximize that ROI. And then finally, this is a core pillar of Ribbon Communications, how we design, how we build, and how we support. Um, it is unrealistic to expect that one vendor is going to be everywhere in your network. There is no one vendor that provides the best of breed in every particular aspect of a network. The access network, Ribbon doesn't provide access, right? So there are vendors out there that do a great job in that area. Uh, so we're going to need to interoperate with them. Uh, by the same token, there are core vendors out there, and so forth. You might also have legacy devices that we need to interoperate with in an alien wave fashion, or others. So what that means for Ribbon is that we need to work and play well with others. We reflect this in our design philosophy, in our support for alien waves, in our support for standards-based protocols and interfaces, of course. And then in our management, building into our management platform, which will be the topic of another talk in the near future, we're talking about end-to-end service orchestration, where we're able to model third-party devices, where we're able to pull information from them and feed it into the Ribbon management system, a truly multi-vendor environment. These capabilities, these interfaces are both northbound and southbound. Northbound meaning we need to interoperate with managers of managers, with servers and so forth that you may have collecting data, and then multi-vendor with southbound capabilities, right, where we're able to model those third-party devices and support alien waves, providing more data to you than simply a blank line representing somebody else's equipment. So removing that vendor lock-in or a general openness of our solution, supporting third-party optics with our support programs, it really is a critical part of our DNA. So thank you for your time. This is intended to be a very brief overview. More than happy to have you visit us at rbbn.com for more questions and information, and look out for more of these brief little video logs on topics to be named. Thanks so much. Bye.